Well guys, today on Boots on the Ground we have a very exciting stop along this beautiful city of Medicine Hat here in southern Alberta. What we're about to see is world renowned. What we're about to see is the world's largest teepee right behind me. Look at that. This structure behind me is 65 meters high, which is almost equivalent to a 20-story building. How amazing is this? Largest one in the world. Look at this, guys. A beautiful structure here on the hills of Medicine Hat, celebrating the Native American culture of Canada and United States. So you guys might ask, well Nick, what is a teepee? And also, what is its significance? Well, a teepee is a traditional kind of house that a Native Americans would build to weather the weather and live in, and it would be essential to their lifestyle. A teepee is a conical structure that would be made out of about 13 to 15 logs of wood, long logs, and wrapped around would be the hide of usually a buffalo or other animals, but most likely buffalo hide. And, some people think that all Native Americans lived in teepees like this, but that's actually not true. The teepees were primarily used by the Native Americans of the Great Prairies. So that is sort of Central America. What you see behind me is actually a structure called Samus teepee. Now the word Samus itself is a Blackfoot term that translates to medicine hat, hat of medicine, which is a hat that would be worn by sort of a shaman of the tribe, the religious spiritual leader of the tribe. And so the hat that would look like, so the hat that he would wear would be called Samus. And what would look like is like this vibrant headwear with feathers going in all different directions. And it would be a great honor to be a medicine man and to wear a Samus hat. And of course, that's where the city of Medicine Hat gets its name from, term Samus, which is a Blackfoot word. So hey guys, let's go explore this beautiful structure, and I'll tell you a little bit more about its history. I apologize if the wind gets in the way. It is quite windy, but let's go and explore this beautiful site. So we're walking right over it. You can see how huge it is, and these paintings you see all around it represent different things about Native American culture. So let's go around. I'll tell you a little bit about each painting as we go through. So you see, this first painting actually has a really unique story behind it. You know, an important thing to point out when you look at this, you see how there's two colors. There's black and yellow. Well, that sort of represents the two native tribes that lived in the area, one of Blackfoot and another one of Cree. This area was largely contested for hundreds of years because the tribes would depend on the herds of bison that would be migrating through this Great Plains behind us. And the native tribes, in this area lived off bison. Largely, that was their primary source of food and resources to build their clothes and shelters from. So whoever had the better access to the bison herds would be more prosperous, would have better chances of weathering winter and other seasons. And so Cree and Blackfoot would constantly fight for the possession of these territories. But in the end, we celebrate them together because they were integral. Both of them were an integral part of this area. So the next painting we can see here, you can see a native man in the midst of prayer. As you can see, there's different phases of the moon and then the sun. Native Americans would worship the sun as the giver of life and warmth. And so the sun, although not being named as a specific deity, was a very significant part of their religious culture. And here's, you can see this man praying to the sun for the life that it gives to him and his tribe. And in the center, you can see the skull of a buffalo. And of course, the buffalo, like I said, was a primary source of food and resources for the Native Americans in this area. And so that represents the power of natural resources and the shelter that it provided to the Native Americans. So it's almost like a holy deity on its own. The next painting that we see here sort of represents the traditional way of life of the Native Americans. So you can see their traditional clothes and art. So you see the moccasins and various other parts of their daily life. And you also see where it sort of came from. Those animals, of course, the bison, the elk, and the deer, and the bear. All of these were used to create these life essential things that would help them survive their harsh climates. And you can see a Native American girl, what it looks like, drying or probably freeze drying some meat from some successful hunt that the warriors bring back home. So it's just a beautiful representation of the way of life of these ancient Native Americans here.
Sorry guys, the wind got way too high for me to fix that video, so I'm gonna just dub it. Basically what you see here is a sweat lodge, which is, not a church, but it is a deeply religious place for the Native Americans. This is where you would go to get cleansed of sort of the bad deeds and also cleanse yourself before the important festivals throughout the year. There would be some incense that would be burned inside. You might also take some psychedelic substances like the Native Americans in the South take peyote. There's a bunch of rituals that went with it, but basically you'd go there and sweat it out in the smoke, and then when you come out, you kind of feel as if you are reborn. So this is very, very important and integral part of the Native culture, and this one is represents the Cree sweat lodge, as I think the writing around it is in Native Cree alphabet.
This next beautiful mural is another spiritual representation. So you can see the Native Americans by the teepees on their horses, and that represents, of course, the humans, which are in the center of it all. And right here, you can see an outlay of a bison. But interestingly enough, it has no eyes. And what that represents is that the bison, which represents the source of food for humans in this area, sort of surrendered itself to make sure that people can survive. And that's why there's no eyes. It's that act of surrendering its essence to humans. But yet on the other side, you can see an eagle. An eagle represents the creator and the ultimate God being to the Native Americans here in the Great Plains. And as you can see, the eagle has an eye, and it sort of watches over the Native Americans, guiding them spiritually and religiously. So the next mural represents the coming of Europeans to North America. As you can see, first there's a Viking, which are known to be the first Europeans ever to reach North America. Then you have conquistadors, Spanish, and then Europeans of different kinds. And the native women with her arms spread apart, it sort of represents the welcoming sign to these Europeans as they came. Of course, as we know, the face is in a little bit of agony because, a lot of atrocities were done by early settlers, which led to innumerable death in the Native American society. So, although it is a welcoming sign, it also shows the agonizing part of the merging of the two cultures. The next mural that we see is representation of the signing of Treaty Number 7, which guides the laws of contact between the new British government and the native government in these lands. even till this day. And so what you see here, the ceremony when they signed the Treaty 7 in 1877, and the chiefs of the tribes that took part in it is what you can see on the right. And those chiefs are, of course, Chief Crowfoot of Siksika tribe, Chief Red Crow of Blood tribe, Chief Bear's Paw of Stony tribe, Chief Eagletail of Pagan tribe, and Chief Bullhead of Tsutina tribe. So you see there's 5 tribes that came together to sign this peace treaty to make sure their people can live in coexistence with the new British settlers. The next mural is representation of Métis people, which are a huge part of Canada culture. The Métis people are the mix of Europeans and Native Americans, and that is why you see sort of a mixed person right there with blue eyes but with darker skin, and that represents the unifications of 2 different culture and ethnicities. This next mural represents the past of traditions as they get passed on from one generation to another generation. So you see women there with their mouths open, and they're in the process of telling these tales to their kids and to the next generation, so they live on. They pass on a symbolic feather that you see in the left, and that feather sort of represents the stories of culture that Native Americans pass on. So this mural sort of represents the hope of the cultures thriving in the next generation and how it gets passed on. And to end our tour of these beautiful murals is this last one, which sort of unifies it all. What you see is a circle with a cross in it, which is one of the earliest symbols in human history to sort of represent the cosmos and the unity of all things to each other. And so what this sort of shows, there you see a man actually with a medicine hat on, smoking a peace pipe, which represents, of course, the peace, and how all things in this cosmos diagram are united. You see humans and animals and the sky in the background, and it all sort of lives in a unity. And this is the final message that the creators of this monument wanted us to take away, is how to realize that no matter who we are, what our bringing ethnicities, we're all in this together, and there's something binding all of us together, and we should never forget that. So guys, there we go. We've seen the world's largest teepee here in Medicine Hat, and what a treat it is to learn all these facts about the Native American culture and some of the historical parts of it, and how Native American culture coexists with European culture, and most importantly, what makes this so special is when you do this, you sort of get welcome to walk in the teepee. As you can see, there's an opening, so one side of this structure is quite open, so it is almost as if you're welcomed by the Native Americans into their holy of the holiest, their teepee, their house. And once you walk in here, you get a chance to learn all these beautiful things and participate in their culture. So this is just such a symbolical thing that you have to walk in the teepee to learn all of this. I love this. This is fantastic. So I highly suggest you guys come here. Wow. One last look at the great teepee here in Medicine Hat. Beautiful. And you know, guys, the original history of this teepee is quite fascinating, because it was originally built for Calgary 1988 Olympics. And then in 1991, it got bought out and brought to Medicine Hat for its final resting place. So it's actually a relic from Canada Olympics of 1988. Alright guys, so now we know that the word Medicine Hat, after which the city is named, has an ancient Blackfoot tribe history relating to the word Samus, which means Medicine Hat. or a magical hat that a spiritual leader of a tribe would wear. But where does the story come from? Well, there's two versions, and it's all tales, so there's no proving that it's true. But from what we know, there's two tales. The first, the more toned down one, is that there once was a war between Blackfoot and Cree tribes. And then when Cree tribe was retreating from the battle, one of their main shamans, one of the medicine men, dropped his medicine hat in the river. And because of this, the city got this name of Samus, medicine hat. That's story number one. But the more romantic and exciting story is this magical tale. And what it says is that one year, the tribe of Blackfoot had a very devastating famine. They couldn't find any game, they couldn't feed their tribe. People were dying left and right, and so the elders of the tribe decided to take one of the people from the tribe and ask him to sacrifice his wife to the spirits in the river. So this man took his new wife and his beloved wolf dog to this place called the Breathing Hole. And this was an opening in the ice in one of the rivers here by Medicine Hat. And he was supposed to throw his wife down this hole as a sacrifice to the deity in the water in exchange for a medicine hat, which would give him special powers. He wanted to trick the spirit, and instead of throwing his wife, he threw down his dog into the ice hole. But the spirit found out about it, and he said, "No, I will not accept it. You have to sacrifice your wife." And so he did. He threw his wife down this frigid, ice-cold water hole, and she perished. And as a reward, he got Samus, this magical medicine hat, which then led to him finding game and feeding his tribe. And in honor of that, the city, this territory, was called Samus, the medicine hat. So it is up to you which story you would like to believe, but nonetheless, whichever you pick, it has a very interesting and unique history behind it. To dive in further into Native American mythology, we took a stop at this park. It's called Police Point Park. It's right on the shore of the river here. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit how Blackfoot saw the creation from a mythological point of view. So to them, everything started with a creator god whose name was Apistotoke. And he was supposed to be not maybe male, but probably not male or female, just a holy spirit. And he then created the spirits of the sky, and then he created the spirit of the sun, and then he created the spirit of the moon, and together the sun and the moon had kids, and those kids became stars. And after that, the creator created the goddess of earth. And after all of that, he created the first human, the prototype, the demigod called Na'api. And Na'api is supposed to be this sort of trickster god, and he actually was the one that taught humans everything they know. So Napi is also known as the old man, and he was assisted by his wife, the old woman. Now her name was Kipita'aki, and together with him, they taught people everything they know. So they told them what to eat, how to hunt, and how to live. And so here in this park, we have this beautiful structure. Let me see if I can make it through the mud here. But what you see here behind me is this little monument. So right here, if you look at it from this way, you can see the face of the Na'api, the trickster god, the first human to be created, the demigod. And then on the other side of this beautiful monument, you see a bison that of course personifies the nourishment and the food for the natives of the Great Plains. Look at that. Now, this monument is not that old, and it's not that big. This was only made in 2003, but I wanted to take a stop here because I think it's such a beautiful message. You know, in one monument we can see that unity between Na'api and the buffalo. And that sort of reflects how the Native Americans see their spirituality, how close they tie nature to divinity. And because of course they depended on nature for life, and they respected it as if they were to respect God. So this is what this monument represents. But next we're gonna walk to somewhere very, very cool. So as we're walking by here, you can see the wild geese flying over this beautiful Saskatchewan River. Look at that. Landing there right in the middle. Look at this. Look at these ancient banks. And as we're walking this shore trail, you get all this cool scenery, these fallen trees that you gotta climb under. Oh. And because we're on a hunt to trace a very magical place with which the story of Medicine Hat unites. All right, guys, so like I said before, there's two tales associated with the name of Medicine Hat. One of a medicine hat being lost in a river when one tribe was retreating, but the other one associated with the sacrifice of one of the women of Blackfoot tribe by her husband in order to get this magical hat from the divinity that lives in this very river right here. So what we're gonna try to do is to potentially find the place where this supposed hole, this unfreezing hole that he threw his wife into, is located. And I believe it is just around the corner. So let's go check out this mysterious and magical place. Yeah, look at this beautiful and in a little bit, in a way, eerie walk through this winter park. You know, all the leaves are fallen down and you can see these naked trees crisscrossing. It almost looks mystical. Came upon more Canada goose on the banks of the river. Okay guys, this is amazing. I think we found it. So we've been walking down for a while on the shore of the South Saskatchewan River. And as you can see, it is pretty tame water. There's almost no waves. It's just flat glass surface. But as you get to this point at the ebb of the river, look at this. Look at this. You have clean, no waves, just easygoing water. And all of a sudden you get to this part. And look what happens. You see the currents speed up. You see all of this happening in the water right there. Can you see it? Look how different it looks. That to this. Wow. So what I heard is because of this change of current, this part right here would never freeze up during winter. It's hard to see right now because there's no ice on the river. It's quite warm right now, but when it's super cold, no matter how cold it gets, that part that I just showed you would never get that cold. And so the Native Americans that lived here, they looked at it and went, wow, well, what is going on? This place must be really special if this never freezes up. And it became a sacred site to them. And so it is quite possibly the story of a native Blackfoot tribesman sacrificing his wife for a medicine hat from a deity of water from this river. It's quite possible that it happened literally just right there on these banks of the South Saskatchewan River. How cool is that? This is like real history. This is you know, tales in action. You hear it and then you see it for yourself, and it totally makes sense when you just when you see that difference between the quiet water over there and this current, strong current, powerful river just 20 feet away from the calm area. Wow! Look at that, guys. See that spot right there where the current is especially hard? This is where I think the holy hole that the Blackfoot people venerated was located. Wow. Do you see the difference? Look how calm the water is there, and all of a sudden, boom! All this movement. And of course, it just never freezes up right there in the center. So there you guys are. We learned a little bit of a history, Native American history of Medicine Hat. We looked at the world's largest teepee. We walked through this magnificent park. We talked about the mythology, Na'api, and the spirit creator of the Native Americans. And we quite possibly found the place of the actual sacrifice, which led to this city being named Medicine Hat. Thanks for watching. And as always, have a great day.